So first of all, wish you all a happy new year. And today I would like to introduce the result of a POC we did last year for our customers Solenis. The topic was the integration between PI system and the Cumulocity IoT platform. So in case you don't know, Solenis is one of the global leaders in chemical and water treatment solutions. They provide process optimization services for different industries. And according to their business models, they need to operate their customers' productions facilities. So they need to have the access to the operational data for monitoring and optimization. Normally, such operational data is saved inside a local historian system. So in their case, they are using PI system for this. So the goal of this POC was to find a way to integrate their PI system with their Cumulocity IoT platform securely and efficiently to make this operational data online available. At that time, we had three main challenges. The first one is security. The PI system itself should not be exposed to the internet. So we need to minimize security exposure. And after we have the integration software or solution, how can we remotely manage them? And the second challenge was how can we make the development and the troubleshooting easy? And the third point is how to make the integration configurable. So the user should be able to configure the integration without touching the code of the integration. So based on these requirements, we set up the such connections. So from left to the right, at the very beginning, there is only a PI system inside Solenis environment. We asked the Solenis to install the REST API server nearby the PI system because it is an optional component of the system. And then we got the access to their environment, so through a Windows remote desktop, so that we can install Synology IO and Node-RED on their virtual machine. And then the Node-RED can send requests to the PI system to get the data and then convert the data into Synology format, publish the data to the Synology topics, and Synology will forward the data to the platform. So for the connection between the Synology and the platform, there are only two ports opened, one for MQTT TLS and one for HTTPS. On the platform, we installed the Node-RED UI plugin for device management application, and also the cloud. The name is a little bit too long. Remote access cloud HTTP proxy microservice. So as long as we got this connection, the user, the administrator user here will be not that useful, because user can directly manage the Node-RED remotely on the platform. So the next question would be, what does Node-RED do here? So this I can show you directly on Solenis platform. So this is the Synology running inside the Solenis environment, and it has the Node-RED plugin installed. I already opened another tab for this. There are two flows now. The first one was the original, the first version flow. The logic is to every 30 seconds, it will read the configuration file to get the URL of the Pi system and also other configurations. We use this configuration feature of the platform to manage the configuration files. So the user can change when they need to, when they want to. And also another file is saving the data points name and some other information about the point. So the flow will use this information to create the querying request to get the URL of each data point. So that would be the first request to get the URL. After we have the URL of each point, the flow will get the recorded data for the, recorded data for each data point. And this one is also from the configuration file. And then after the response, the flow got the response, it will convert the data into the single or simple measurements, and it will send the measurements separately to the Solenis measurements topic. So that was the first version. And then they asked, the Solenis asked if we can send the data in bulk. And then we create a second flow. The first steps are exactly the same as the previous one, just the last function here. It will not convert the data into Solenis format, but in Cumulocity's JSON via MQDT format, and then publish the data directly to Cumulocity's create bulk measurements topic. So this one is running. When we go back to the platform, there are some recorded data here. Yes, so this is the first approach, is using Node-RED. The Node-RED will give you a visual low-code editor, and it can be integrated with the platform, so no other application is required, only a browser. But as you can see in the two flows, there are multiple nodes. It can become complicated very easily, and the debugging process is not that friendly. So we did exactly the same thing, but using a Python script. As you can see here, this approach is also using the remote access cloud HTTP proxy. So it can create a SSH connection to the virtual machine inside the Solenis environment. Yeah. The advantages is the debug process will become more easier, and also you can create any complex logics as you need. But of course, it will require higher level of coding, programming. Yes, that's what we done for Solenis. Any questions so far?
Maybe not questions, but maybe just to highlight, because I think that was a good kind of snapshot over a lot of features, especially all the features that kind of come out of the box with ThinEdge. So you have like the interfacing with whatever custom application you're writing, that you can then configure it still using file-based configuration files and manage it from platform. You can use the wonderful remote access feature to both access HTTP endpoints, like the Node-RED UI endpoints, but also connect using remote access. And that's probably that was very subtle, that you were connecting via the cloud using the cloud remote access feature of Cumulocity. So again, no direct access is required, so you don't need to expose ports or anything. And I think that also highlights a good kind of, should you use Node-RED or not? I think it really depends on, your skill set and your team. So Node-RED has a lot of like good things out of the box to have, connect to a whole host of different kind of interfaces. So whether it's Redis, Pi server or whatever, it kind of enables rapid prototyping, which can be helpful, regardless whether you take that as your kind of like the solution that you then deploy in production, but at least gives you kind of like a no-code, quick, hey, does it even work? And kind of you can play around with things and interact with different things quite easily. And then it's then up to you to decide whether that makes sense for a production rollout. So you can do that, and that's where interacting with the Node-RED plugin for ThinEdge, which I'll show later, can be useful, or like the container deployment, which even makes the deployment of Node-RED easier. So you're not installing it on the host, but actually in a container environment. So there's a lot of like moving parts, and all of that is made relatively easy because of the strong device management functionality. And also one of the key things with between approach 1 and 2 in terms of like where do we publish the measurements to. So that's why ThinEdge, we have a ThinEdge format, which is for measurements currently only supports like multi-series measurements, but a single measurement as a payload. So that's useful, but if you, with all kind of like interfaces at some time or at some point in time, you reach a limit to it. So being able to opt into direct publishing to Cumulocity, well, it's not directly, but using the existing ThinEdge bridge, you can still kind of default to the cloud native, let's say, MQTT endpoints without having to change much code. So you're still using ThinEdge as the backbone for the communicating to the cloud, but you're just not using the ThinEdge measurement translator anymore. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in your projects that, when you requirements come along, you can kind of adjust accordingly. And you can also give feedback to the ThinEdge team to say, hey, why don't we support a multi-measurement ThinEdge telemetry data format? Sure. And then we can add that into the ThinEdge kind of feature set. So yeah, thanks for showing that. It's very nice, a cross-section of kind of more a real use case. I want to achieve this in a project. How do I do that with ThinEdge? And Marco, you have a question.
Yeah, really interesting issue. Have you played around with existing nodes, especially for Pi?
Yes, that one is an open source one. It's quite old, and I remember there was something wrong inside it, so I decided to switch to normal HTTP node.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just implemented the REST interface by yourself. Other question, and what was the outcome in terms of what would they like to use for that project?
So now our PS is Christian is developing I think Python solution for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, Solenis wants to take the POC which Hugh has implemented and want to productize it, and they want to go for the Python approach. So this is what we will do as part of a PS project, so that we make the Python script a bit more production ready by using also parameters for the script, because right now most of the stuff is actually hard coded. And also we will change the architecture a little bit. So instead of having the Python script being deployed directly next to the ThinEdge, we'll put it into a Docker container and deploy it as part of this container approach, which ThinEdge supports. So that we have kind of an extension approach. So in the future, Solenis plans to also integrate to other historian systems, not only PySys. And therefore, we thought it's a good idea that we create different kind of extensions for it by using this plugin approach of ThinEdge, and then you can quickly switch out the necessary extension which you would like to deploy on the customer system.
Okay, what the choice of Python is, what were any load tests or something like that involved? How does it compare to Node-RED, which is also interpreted Node.js? Or would it be good to have a binary executable like Go or?
Issue, I don't think you ran any performance tests, right? So
No, I didn't.
But I have a feeling that because we're not talking about high performance systems here, because we're doing, in the end, you're going to be IO blocking because we're doing REST calls. So most of the time we'll be waiting for a response. So the throughput of processing that, I think, will be very insignificant in comparison to the calls. So the difference in between interpreted languages and compiled might be less. But I think from at least my experience that from my memory, Solenis has a few Python developers, maybe not enough to then take this on their own, but it also comes with how do they manage and maintain that in the future. And that's generally then companies will have preferred languages, and sometimes it's not really based on performance metrics, but more, what skill set do the existing developer team have to be able to support that.
I think also one main reason why we are doing it in Python is because Issue already started it implementing in Python and also wanted to keep the effort low in the beginning.
Okay, got it. What is the use case of getting the data from the historian? Maybe.
And basically just get the data into Cumulocity to have it all centralized in Cumulocity for their customers.
So offloading all the Pi data, or what is it?
Yeah, at least for the devices which the customer is interested into having also the data in Cumulocity.
And you are polling this in which interval then?
That's configurable. So I'm not sure usually which interval you currently configured, but we plan to have it configurable as part of the integration to Cumulocity.
So maybe a few more context information. So Solenis is operating processes for customers, and they often have this scenario where they want actually to get data out of their customer Pi systems. And this POC was done in their Bradford factory with one of the internal use cases, where they just wanted to prove, can we actually get data out of an historian? And what I found pretty interesting about this project was also, it was I think 4 months project in the end. And 3.5 months of them was Issue speaking with the IT team to get the VM positioned in their network, to get in the DMZ, to get access to the right ports, etc. And then after this has been done, and after Issue had access to this remote desktop terminal, she then in I think 1 or 2 weeks installed Synergy as a Docker container. She never used this remote desktop again, and then just used the Cumulocity or the Solenis IoT platform to remotely log into that. And I think this is also a very important learning, that this actual script is actually the easy part, getting the data from the historian. And then yes, it needs to be configurable, and there's some thoughts and discussions going on around that. But I think a huge value that that we could show was we can actually position such a thin edge into a customer's environment, not just on a gateway, but in this case on a VM as a Docker container. And then we can leverage it as a vehicle to get things out. And we had a lot of discussions also with their security architects, convincing them, hey, it's only one outgoing connection into the Cumulocity IoT platform, etc. So we got this go-ahead to deploy that to their DMZ. And I think this is really the big value of this POC, that we could show it, hey, this data integration, yes, we need to engineer it. It's possible, and maybe we don't have this perfect solution for this, but it's actually not the hard part. And Synergy can address the hard part of it. And I think that was really cool in this project.
Can we reuse the stuff, the Python script, that we have some sort of a Pi connector?
I asked Solenis, and they said we can reuse also their name as a reference story. So the whole slide deck that Issue is presenting, you can reuse it also for other customers and showing it. You can speak about Solenis. And yes, the Python script from Issue, I think she even published it on Tech Community, so you can also use that.
Yes.
I had a similar question. So all of this, we have heard other use cases like SAP and in other cases where we need this historian integrations. Are there any restriction or constraints in the current solution to from a data side of things, or to pull from Pi systems as to, or this can be leveraged in use cases like SAP too?
Actually, Yishu and me, we presented that also to the SAP team, and they also really liked it. So yes, I think this is also a discussion. So Jan, Florian Weingold, Marco, he set up a session where this was presented and how SynEdge can help with security and these topics. When speaking to Solenis and connecting to those historians, there are a lot of consideration. For example, load is an important one. So all of these customers are afraid if I get data out of the historians, I put additional load. It needs to be, it's usually used for SCADA system. It needs to be super robust. So there might also be further engineering considerations spent into how to get access to them. Then the other topic we discussed is there are different PI interfaces. So this REST API is actually a module for PI, which not every customer has installed. So also this script might be a bit Solenis specific. We can use it for SAP. But as said, like this script, if you have a REST API getting the data, that's the easy part. Christian is planning some work on making it more configurable, as to your point, Marco, that you can say which tag in which frequency do you want to export and these kind of configurations, so that you can just change the configuration without having to change the script. But this is, in my opinion, more project work to do. But generally, then positioning SynEdge is as a way to install it on a Docker container. I think there has also been some discussion in the SynEdge team to be more flexibly in the kind of delivery of and deployment of SynEdge. I think that is a really big value that we can also promote more strongly.
Yeah, and I think the key is to, the project work is just doing that small little bit, and you don't need to worry about deployments or anything like that, because that's all done for you. Or even using SynEdge in a development scenario to do your development on the remote machine that you don't normally have access to, because you have to have a VPN through a VPN through a VPN, that it simplifies all of that for you. Yeah, cool. So thanks again, Yishu, for presenting that. And also, if you want to present in some of our public demos, if we have like free slots, feel free to reach out to us as well. But moving on